neglected use. So apologies for that. We haven't missed anything of major importance. No.
So I had commented, this is Reed again, I had commented to Simon, I read through this. It's extremely thorough. It's unfortunate that it has to be trimmed to one page for print. I was going to sit here and try and do word crafting and reduce the size of it, and I realized I was not going to do a good job of it, so I left it as is and only sent one minor edit to Simon, which he acknowledged. That had to do with duck nesting. But I think it's a great report. Very, very thorough.
Can you scroll up a little bit so we can see?
So we've got
down, I guess.
First paragraph's kind of an intro on the committee. The second paragraph's talking about our planning for forest management.
Correct.
The third paragraph, our forest is home. What's that one about?
This is invasives, so I know we spent a lot of time on that. So it's talking about the reasons why it's important, and then the sorts of things we've done to tackle it this year.
Okay. And then the fourth paragraph, non-forested areas, bird habitat. Okay, invasive, now birds. That's nice. Fifth year bobbling monitoring. Oh, this is great. Oh, and Reed's sign.
Yes,
Is that your sign, Reed?
it is. It is the new sign that was put up.
Nice.
Yeah, I think that captures a lot of all the things that we've been doing, and so we will be able to have a more elaborate online presence. On the town website.
Yeah.
So we can put some more in there.
So it's a little bit more about details about the success of monitoring.
So, do we want to say anything, so when you condense it down, how do we know, was that first page what will be condensed down?
No, I think I'd reduce each paragraph. There's a lot of good stuff in here. And I think really, people want to dig into it more, they can.
Okay.
Yeah.
The other thing that struck me was the first page didn't say anything about outdoor family center.
Right.
Well, you guys get your own page though, right?
Don't think so. We got a paragraph that we submitted.
Oh, okay, so you don't get a page in the town report, okay, oh, okay. And
I mean,
but
I mean, we have our own- The outdoor family center has their own, the outdoor family center has their own newsletter to like anybody that wants to subscribe.
Right.
So, but no, it's not, it doesn't have a place as so it's good to highlight it here, so people know what the forest is doing, what we're doing with the forest.
Yeah. So plenty in there about birds. We've got Reed's signs, which I may move up to be next to the sign picture. Looking at this again. We did I think we need to signpost the license work. I know the committee reviewed that twice, which is helpful. We've got, I think John started in the last financial year, so he's mentioned in here.
So it's hard because you have to think a year ago. So that's the hard thing. You're reading this and saying, oh, this is all old news, but
Well, yeah, the calendar, the dates that we were asked to talk about, we were like, oh, that's kind of a long time ago.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Yes, because even though we've done the forest management project, you can't speak of it as being completed. You have to speak of it as coming up.
Yeah.
Right.
That's very awkward. Someone should give the town that feedback.
We can't be time travelers.
Talking about stuff in the future that's already happened.
Right.
Like, how's that not confusing to the public? Oh, they're
No,
gonna
it's-
log some more?
It is confusing.
What?
Yeah.
But it's based on fiscal year, which is
Right.
how
Yeah,
the
but we should
report
publish-
works.
but we should publish it at the end of the fiscal year, not 6 months later.
Right.
So
And it's read for the town meeting, 3 months after that.
Really?
So I think that's when it's really presented, right?
So dated, even if we were able to be accurate with the time when we wrote it, If 3 months of other stuff would have happened.
It's been,
So Reed is giving feedback you incorporated in, or you can? Okay, so we've got the forest management plan, invasives, birds. The
License.
sign, the
Sign.
license renewal, I missed that, there it is,
Mhm.
initial
Yeah.
license renewal. Oh, we still gotta sign that, oh no, sorry, we already did.
Yeah.
That was
Just
in
kidding.
October.
And then outdoor family center submitted,
So
what
I've
was going on
done
there?
like,
Yeah.
John arriving. And I think you brought the nighttime trails back into use, or was that this year?
It was
Last year,
after,
okay, yeah.
okay, so July first.
Yeah. And then we've got, the paragraph that,
Did you write the nighttime trails part?
I did, I put some stuff down to,
Uh-huh,
That we
Fill
cut
it
out,
out.
because
Yeah.
No, that's good.
The fiscal thing.
yeah.
yeah.
Do you wanna say ski trails, I guess, or winter trails?
Okay, because because it's multi-use
Just not.
I'm
summer,
sure
there's-
people could snowshoe or
and fat bike, yeah.
Okay.
that like.
Yeah, so we're trying
The
to.
winter nighttime
Trying to
trails?
keep that loop as
Yeah.
multi-use as possible.
That seems,
no,
Yeah.
I support, I second Hans's suggestion
like throw
of
the word in winter.
winter, nighttime.
Oh, because you don't have the lights on.
Yeah,
We
they
don't
Summer,
in
you're
the
right.
summer, yeah, that
That's true.
helps for sure.
Yeah.
And maybe a sentence somewhere that indicates that at our committee meetings.
Yeah.
Outdoor Family Center attends every,
Okay.
there's like, the partnership is very close.
Mhm. I've gone to keeping a page on my computer, just on notes of all the things we do, like from July first. I went back through my calendar and just looked and said, oh, we had a invasive day here and, you know, just because you forget, it's just so hard to remember what you did 6 months ago, if not a year ago. So that's been helpful.
Great. So, what do we wanna do now? I think from what I reviewed today, I'm comfortable
Yeah.
with it. We don't wanna hold you up from finishing it for the due date
No, so I'll probably I'll have to cut it down pretty
to the
significantly.
one pager.
Yeah, so I think we'll just, I might reorder it, slightly.
And then do you feel you can squeeze in all the key elements, forest management, invasives, birds, license, COF, the outdoor family center?
Yeah, I mean, each paragraph is gonna be a fair bit shorter.
Yeah,
But I think we just need the highlights,
so as long as you keep all of the core parts of it in, then
yeah.
Now,
looks good.
yeah,
Thank you
will
for
there
doing
be will there be a line in here that says at the end, for more information, you can go to the town website? And maybe even a QR code to bring you
Yeah,
to,
I think,
I know that's.
I'd rather.
For the
not leave
two-page
QR
version of
code.
this, click here.
I mean, because
I just-
nobody goes to. the-
Well, at some point, we will have a modern era website for the town, which means the archive won't work anymore.
You know, this meeting is being recorded, right?
Yeah, that's right. We're gonna hold you
I'd
to
be
that.
very happy if the Observer reported that comment. You know, we will have a different website, hopefully one that's a lot better, you know, whenever that may be. So things like QR codes, I think, and they're great sort of 1-2 year type things,
Mhm.
but long
Sure.
term.
Okay,
And will the town, do you know if the town reports are going to be mailed out to every person in town, or are they just gonna be?
I don't know that off the top of my head, it will be what they usually do.
Which is not mailed, I don't.
Not, okay, recently they've gone to not mailed,
Yeah.
even during COVID. Okay. People can pick
I don't
them up.
remember getting them.
Yeah,
Ever.
Oh, yeah, we used to
Been a
get
while,
them,
yeah.
yeah, oh, yeah, we've got a whole
Oh,
bunch of them. In a corner somewhere, you know,
yeah,
back in the early 2000s.
okay, so I think we can finish this one,
Yeah. Everyone's happy?
yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Yes,
Thank you.
very satisfied with it. Thank you, Simon, for putting it together.
Okay, great.
So we're still, not at 6:05 yet, should we pull in another agenda item, we can do,
We could do the outdoor family centre update.
yeah.
yeah, that might be nice for people to hear.
So, we haven't met since November?
December.
Oh,
We did.
okay.
We weren't.
Oh, you're right, yeah, yeah.
December,
So, I won't talk about finishing the logging repairs because we did that. We did, more recently remove the two, dilapidated sheds, that were left over from the Humming Forest days and melting into the forest, so those are now out of the woods. We'll have a little bit of cleanup to finish in the dry ground months when things unfreeze and we can rake up some of the smaller debris, but the buildings are gone. And thank you to the town for, giving us a dumpster to put all that in.
Well, thanks to the Outdoor Family Centre for doing all the work as well.
That's great.
Yeah,
It was, Andy was like, I'm so glad we finally got this done. It's been on my list since I got here. So, it was, I think it was a good thing for everybody to see those.
Yeah.
Come out of the woods. We also submitted 2 Borac grants, in December. After the last meeting, those are for trail upgrades to Elbow, Balsams, and Three Rivers. And then the other one was for building planning, which we are deeply in at this point. The mansion and the lodge are of limited lifespan for us. And we really need to think, long-term about where we might be and how we might house everything that we have. So summer camps, we have to, find our capacity there. We need to think about where the hub, the hub lives right now and where the offices are. So, we've been working with the land trust, to make sure that our planning isn't going beyond what is allowed by them, under the easement, but also recognizing that we have, needs to meet with this planning. But we were very happy to get a bunch of really great support letters for those grants, and it was a great exercise for us to go through too, to really get these planning documents moving forward. And we're happy to talk more about that if anybody has any questions.
When do you hear back on the Borac grants?
I want to say at the end of February, so it's a pretty quick turnaround on that one. So if we do have success in those, we'll hear about it soon. Our winter ops have started intermittently. We've been skiing in November, in December, and now in January. And but we've also had dry ground at times, and during those times, we continue to try to ride bikes and hike, just to, we want people to be able to go out and feel comfortable going out. And so when conditions are allowed, we're open. And we really don't like closing, so it's more about, protecting the trails than anything. This weekend, Catamount Trail Association and Special Olympics will be starting their winter series with us. We're gonna do our best to let them have fun on what little snow we might have. We also have our Tri Package, which is a 3-lesson offering for new skiers to come out. Gives them 3 lessons with rentals, the lesson itself, and then at the end they get a season pass for the Forest and Outdoor Family Center. And we've sold out of that one, and we're starting a February one now. So the lighted night loop, we have not turned on yet because we haven't had enough snow, or the weather has been wrong in other ways. But we are starting on Tuesday of this next coming week. And in about 2 weeks, summer camps go on sale. Which so we are deep in planning for summer. I know we barely even started winter, and we're way ahead on that, but that is our biggest project of the whole year is summer camp. So this is a key time for us. And then the last bit is just that we've this is redundant in some ways because everybody's alive and looking outside. We've had major wind and weather events that have been super challenging. So we spent all day today with extra help out cleaning sticks and blowdowns and everything. So it's been challenging on that front, on top of all the rain and everything else that's happened this year. And at weird times too. So we've struggled with attendance and maintenance. So that's our update for this month.
great. Just to add to that, something that you may have noticed was at the end of last year, they excavated an old underground storage tank
Oh, I'm
at
sorry,
the
yeah.
centre. So that happened, it was a very old feature, to remove any contaminated land there. So that was a success. I think we've almost got sign off from Vermont, Department of Environmental Conservation on that. So subject to a few bits of minor bureaucracy, I think that thing is totally gone, along with all any contamination associated with it, which is good news.
Yeah, the landscaping is nice too, so it's, we don't have a pond anymore.
Okay.
So they were able to smooth it out.
They filled it up and then smoothed it out, yeah, so instead of it drifting down to the road there, it now drains it back into the. It's a little bit.
Excellent. Were they able to reseed it or not?
They
really?
put down seed and hay, but it was December.
Yeah.
So I think we're probably gonna have to do a little
See what
extra.
happens.
I mean, the seed's not gonna, it's gonna rot. So
Under these conditions.
yeah, we'll reseed in the spring.
Yeah.
Okay,
Oh, there's Ethan.
Ethan,
Hey.
hi Ethan, thank you for joining. We moved you around a little bit. We're a few minutes away from starting our public comment on hunter education courses. But we still have a few minutes. We can maybe pick off the town forest events. Do we wanna look at that? That's the only other agenda item.
Yeah.
Oh, there's no
No.
new ones to
Yeah.
approve?
No.
Okay. So short of sitting here for the next 8 minutes doing nothing, we could start a little bit early on the public comments. Do you think that's okay, or do you wanna wait still?
I mean, I think I'd rather wait until 6, if that's okay, just because
You had,
that,
was it right at 6?
yeah, that's what
Copy
I,
had
when I wrote to
6:45.
the abutters, that's what I told them. I
Okay, okay,
can't be pedantic, but
so we can
yeah.
play some Jeopardy music while we wait.
How long would your presentation take, Ethan? For the
The
invasive?
invasive plant control,
longer than that.
probably.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
10
More,
minutes.
more than 10
Yeah.
minutes, yeah.
Can I ask a question which is not on the agenda?
Yeah.
Sure.
Sure. So the forest management project, do we have, I may have missed a meeting and missed this entirely, and it may be all written. Do we have a final outcome report on the results of the amount of lumber harvested, income to the town, expenses and so on?
We do. Or I have the income on, or I have the report on, there's kept a spreadsheet of all the final harvest volumes by species and grade, and the final income. So do you
Okay.
want, I can send that around and you can take a look at my spreadsheet.
Okay.
If you like.
We could put it on our agenda for next month then to review and discuss. Sure.
Yeah, I'll
Terrific.
send it to Simon.
Yeah, thank you.
Right.
There, Hans, I've eaten up 1 minute.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, I guess like, not to be too obsessed with money, but, I guess the highlight was, we got about $19,000, which went into the stewardship fund,
Wow.
which is a good
Terrific.
result. I think it's pretty much bang on what, Ethan estimated, which is great news.
So related to that, I also, so we have 5 minutes to go. So Ethan, I put up Simon bought some of those signs, from Voss, signage about the tree species. And I put those up around where the forest management area was. I think I only missed 2. But I was also thinking of continuing that and putting some over, like in the night loop area, I guess, and stand 8, 9, and 10, and then across the road. So would that be pretty much the same species in each of those areas? So
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we could, if you want, you and me could take a walk and, sort of locate them or see if we can get some other species that we didn't have already, or we could use the same ones. I'm sure we could locate an individual of any one of those species in that other area.
okay, so, kind of continuing on the educational, thread over there, at the Catamount Community Forest, and And there's small signs, which is nice, and they just get tacked onto the tree. I don't know if anybody.
I've noticed them. I mean, I really do like them. I will say though, I remember us bringing up in committee here a while ago. Do we have some kind of new sign approval process? Did
Yeah,
we
we
go
do
through that?
I bought them with non-Catamount funds, but you're right.
So cause we were, as a committee, there's expressed concern, we don't wanna have signs everywhere.
Yeah.
So like, as long as the committee has said, yes, let's do more of these, that it's good. I mean, I personally like them.
Right, because.
I emailed John, I'm like, well, these are great, are they yours? And he said, no. But let's just make sure the committee, like, if we're gonna do more of them, but I think we were getting like an inventory of all signs.
Yeah.
And then,
Oh, right. Yes,
having
that's
committee
true.
approval to add more signs, just so we don't end up with billboards in the woods. And-
You're right, because
And-
some of the signs are larger, but they're,
Flash.
oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay,
So is
Maybe
that
get that
something?
something.
Should we get cracking?
yeah, let's
Okay.
go on the public comment. Okay, it's 6:01. Sorry, we're a minute late we were waiting for exactly 6. Now
Yeah.
we're overshot to 6:01. Simon, do you want to introduce it or
Yeah, so just,
and then I'll let Terry take over chairing. I'm no longer chairing the section.
so at the last meeting, we reviewed a proposal from the Outdoor Family Centre working with Vermont Fish and Wildlife to host, number of things, including hunter education courses, but also fish and wildlife seminars at the forest. So this was like an educational thing and an outreach thing. So probably a lot of you read the article in the Observer last week, which seems to have caused some confusion. I know I've spoken to a few people about this over the course of the week. So just before we launch into this, I just want to clarify that there is no proposal to allow hunting in the forest. No one's proposed that to the town or this committee or me. That's not what we're here to discuss, and no one's asked for that. What we're here to discuss is hosting hunter education. So we did talk about it last time. The committee gave some good feedback on the value of the course. But one thing they were quite keen on was making sure that the abutters who we neighbour are fully aware of what's going on and what we're talking about. That's something that town staff felt would make us more comfortable as well. So that said, the presentation we had last time and the discussion was great. It was really nuanced. And I felt I learned a lot. I just generally, Amanda, I think it's safe to say these hunting courses are sort of legally mandated. If you want to become certified hunter, if you want your hunting license, you have to do them. They take place at venues all across the state. So as well as the more predictable like gun clubs, they also do them at schools, libraries, and other sort of forests and outdoor spaces. I think one of the priorities is teaching sort of safe and responsible hunting, safe and responsible firearm handling, but also something I wasn't aware of, and Amanda might have to speak a bit more to, was educating people about forests and wildlife and wild food and animal ID and things like that. Was something I wasn't aware of. So it really is an educational thing. They comprise a number of different elements. So sort of lectures, which take place, sort of homework for people to do, woodland walks, firearm handling, and there is a live fire element. Then we talked about how that could be handled, and I think the consensus was we don't want people shooting guns Catamount, but there was a number of options we could take for how that might be handled. Things like, we have a gun club on Old Creamery Road. John mooted that we have the quarry next door, who may be available to us, and then there's other things they can do like simulated fire. So that's where we got to on that. I think the committee felt that it's a pretty valuable educational aspect. It would support a number of things. Our management plan that we have for the forest, approved by the select board, does contain a lot about education and how we should use the forest to educate people about everything and all the benefits it can have. And that's also, I believe, part of the Outdoor Family Centres mission. So I don't know, Amanda would be essentially the point person for running these courses. I think maybe I'd like to just give you an opportunity, just 5 minutes to identify anything I've missed and elaborate on anything you'd like.
Yeah, I think that was a great overview. The only thing I would add on is that there are different certifications within the program. So there is a basic hunter ed program, that would be the first certification. If folks wanted to continue that education, they would then opt into a bow hunter certification course. So you do have to take basic before you can do bow. I was hoping to offer both of those certification courses. And then we're also asking for like wild food seminars and stuff like that. And possibly another one that we didn't talk about at the last meeting, but that I was hoping to talk about at this meeting is under the same branch of ANR, or Agency of Natural Resources, and within the Fish and Wildlife Department, there's the education department, and they run hunter education as well as the Let's Go Fishing program. And I think that offering fishing courses at Catamount, again, there would be no actual active fishing at Catamount. We would talk about casting, we talk about species ID. I think it fits into the same bubble. So I also wanted to throw that out to the committee.
Great, okay, so,
Can I say one thing?
So, yeah, go.
So
Go right
I
ahead.
was the reason why people got so angry about hunting. But because I mentioned that we might talk about hunting in the future, so I just want to acknowledge that that this discussion really should be about the hunter safety and fishing this proposal, and not about me opening my big mouth.
okay, great. So clearly, yes, clearly this discussion is about the hunter safety educational program. Right, and there is no proposal at all for any hunting to be taking place at Catamount. So, so there you had some things online. There was a letter from one of the abutters.
Yeah, I think that butter's here.
Yeah.
At the moment,
Right.
I guess maybe we can alternate in person and online for people. If you're in person, be grateful if you could perhaps just come up and sit in the seat, so the meeting help can pick up your voice, and just state your name so we know who you are.
Okay, so we can open it up to public comment. If folks want to just grab this chair, like Simon said, it'll be much easier for folks to listen here and everything. So anybody would like to comment?
Just here to listen.
Listen, okay, great. Would you like to?
My comment would just be in support of it, if you sit there and say that.
Sure, yeah, come on up and state your name, and then you can make your statement.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Do I look somewhere? My name is Travis Barber. I'm a Wilson resident, and I do support the idea of the education for hunting and archery as well, and actually all the outdoor activities that we propose. I think it's great. In Chittenden County, I think we're lacking in that a little bit. I think Williston can maybe fill that role. You know, growing up in rural Vermont, it seemed it was everywhere. You could get to it. And here I found that my children and adults, new novice hunters, and don't have that opportunity. So I think it's great. Thank you. Thank you. And I would support the proposal.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Steve, would you like to?
Sure.
And then we'll get to folks online.
Steve Page, I'm in a butter, along with my wife. And, I can't see a downside from any vantage point to encouraging hunter education, programs being conducted at Catamount, other than the issue of, the firing, education issue. Otherwise, I see no issues. I think it's a great idea, taking advantage of the very, very proximate location of the forest in Chittenden County. I think it's a wonderful way to make use of the forest.
One more thing that Amanda reminded me of too, and I don't mean to interrupt, we can't charge for these. So this is not a way for us to necessarily be making money. This is about serving the community.
Education, great. Great, thank you very much, Steve. And is there anybody online that would like to speak? I don't see any hands raised at the moment.
Could I just speak, just regarding the fishing, the Parks and Rec, I think does offer the Let's Go Fishing with the Fish and Wildlife. So it would be probably good to talk with Todd about that program, just so, because I think that we do charge, so there could be some sort of.
Hunter ed is different. Hunter is state mandated to be provided to all residents and it has to be free. Let's Go Fishing is kind of in a different bucket. So Corey Hart runs that program and there potentially, depending on how that was formatted, could be a cost to it, but the Hunter ed has to be free.
Okay, yeah, it'd just be good to.
Make sure we're not doing it in two places right next to the door to each other.
Yeah.
Okay, and I see two folks online. I didn't see whose hand went up first. But Sharon, I'll go ahead and you can start.
Hi, Jay, my old neighbor. I'm glad to have clarification. There is a huge difference between the education of hunting and actual any practice of hunting. So definitely the negative comments, including from myself, would only be in the use of firearms, bows, or traps on wildlife. I don't feel the need to bring that up tonight, but I do want to reemphasize, you know, as an abutter to Catamount and as one that feels that nature has a way of controlling animal populations. It's a topic for another night, but I want to make sure that the committee understands that when that topic comes up, because my guess is it will, if it was brought up in the paper as an interest, I'm sure it's not the only interest. I definitely want to be included in that discussion. As far as the hunter training course, I have no objection to the hunter training, except I don't want to have any firearms going off in the area or bows being used, arrows flying. I don't want to have the restriction of other use. When there's any other public use, it doesn't restrict. So if somebody, for instance, wants to go biking, that doesn't restrict the hikers. People want to go cross-country skiing, doesn't restrict the snow. People want to go snowshoeing. So anything that restricts the activities of another, I would say is important. But as an abutter, I guess my only concern is I just don't want to have any firearms actually being used, even if it's into a target that's not alive.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate the comment. And Jay, would you like to speak?
I support this, and I'm just looking at a Digger article from 2019 that the Vermont tradition in hunting is in decline. And I'm all for addressing food insecurity. And for a lot of Vermonters, this is an opportune time for them to fill their freezer chests. And I mean, there's nothing like well-prepared venison. And for to encourage more people, especially the idea of educating them in the proper, appropriate way of hunting. And Catamount is it's a public access, and this is something that is a deep-rooted tradition in Vermont. And I applaud the people that put this proposal together, and I wholeheartedly support this. That's all.
Great, thank you very much. And is anybody else in the room who would like to speak? Good, yeah, come on right up and great, thank you.
Hi, I'm Chris Izzo. I'm a Williston resident and also directly abut Catamount. I think that having a hunting education program is a great idea. Hunting is a big part of the community and I support that. I'm also comfortable with it at Catamount. However, I think it's pretty clear, even despite what Mr. Miles indicated, that is not necessarily gonna be the end of this conversation. And I have 3 young kids. We are outside all the time. We're probably at Catamount, I don't know, 2 or 3 times a week, hiking, skiing, biking. It's one of our favorite activities to go up to the lookout. And I'm very strongly uncomfortable and against discharge of any weapons of any kind, in Catamount, bow and arrow, whatever. I think that we would feel deeply uncomfortable with that, situation. We are 30 feet from Catamount, so, I'm concerned because despite what Mr. Atkinson is saying in the paper, it was pretty clear that this is a progression towards allowing hunting at Catamount. So that's my secondary concern. My primary concern is that there will be a discharge of some weaponry as part of the course. And that's just something I feel very strongly against. I think Sharon makes some good points about access to, I know that since I live right there, I see people sneaking onto Catamount's property all the time. We're members, but I know that, teenagers, for example, are constantly kind of cutting up there. I don't really see how you could keep people safe, and inform the public and isolate Catamount in such a way unless you put like ropes around it. Whereas if you were discharging weapons, you could actually ensure that people weren't traveling on the property. So I don't see how you could keep the community safe if you were discharging weapons there. Because people just sneak out. I see them I'm like on my front porch and I see people sneaking in. So, I have concerns about the community, but my primary concern is for my family and not wanting to be near any kind of weapons being discharged. And I am kind of concerned that there's this kind of like a way to kind of sneak that in. And that is.
Anything.
No.
I know, and Mr. Miles like kindly explained to me the steps that would need to be taken in order to allow hunting to happen. But, I'm not against hunting. I'm not against hunting education. My feelings happen to be irrelevant anyway, because it's legally protected and legally mandated. But in my community, this is something that would cause me to move to another community. I'm very against it as far as discharging weapons. The hunting education class, if it didn't involve that, I would probably actually go to, because it sounds great. But I don't know how we would create that line with the weapons if we allowed the course. I don't see how that would work. Maybe you can tell more about that.
I was gonna say, am I allowed to
Yeah.
shut the headlight on that?
Yeah.
So first and foremost, I'd just like to talk about terminology. In the realm of hunter education, we use firearms. Firearms are tools to harvest game. Weapons are something that are completely different. They're used in a military function and they're designed to cause harm. So I know that there's a lot of overlap, but when we talk about hunting and we talk about hunter education, we say firearms, because we're not training folks to use weapons. In the courses for the hunter firearm education as well as the bow hunter education, it is required because we are certifying someone to go out and do this in the woods by themselves, right? We're saying that this person is safe, responsible, and ethical, and that they are going to be safe in the woods with this firearm or with this bow. So before certifying them to do that, we want to see them handle a bow, we want to see them handle a firearm, and we want to know that they're doing so safely. So it is required, it is a part of the course because we're certifying them to do that on their own independently. There's a new program, I think it's NASS, where they are doing bow hunter education and live fire in schools. So there are nets that you bring out, there all these requirements for setting up the nets the right way, but essentially you're creating a safe zone of fire, a safe backdrop. And we would close off, I'm picturing like the wedding field where it would be completely closed off to other users and it would not interfere with any other trail use. There would be a specific backdrop, target, and net to kind of have that 3-tier catch. So there would be no chance of that arrow going anywhere else. For the firearms specifically, we would use either lasers or simulated at Catamount. So we do have some firearms that have the action so that the students are able to work the action. We can see that that's operating functionally. They also have working triggers on them, so we can watch their fingers and see that they're maintaining a safe trigger finger. They're not like holding it over the trigger, they're keeping it away until they're ready to shoot, and that they're maintaining that safe muzzle control, so they're not putting it in any dangerous area and they're treating that firearm, even though it's essentially a video game, right? It's a laser gun. They're treating it like a real firearm and you can see those skills in use. So that can be used with a target and a laser, or it can also be used, we have a screen that the laser is receptive to that actually has game that comes across. It's oddly similar to the video game Buck Hunter, but it does demonstrate those skills that we're looking for, that safe handling for the firearm and the bow. So we would have to do that live fire, as Simon mentioned earlier, we could travel. I am pushing for doing that at Catamount personally, because as a lot of you mentioned, there isn't a lot of opportunity for hunter education in the Chittenden County area, and I think that having the full certification course at one location increases the accessibility of the program. I know that travel is a problem for a lot of people, so to require a course where you come to Catamount and then have to go to a secondary location lowers that accessibility. So I would push for having that live fire component at Catamount. Did that answer?
So it sounds like that is a definite possibility that if we hold the course there will be live firearms being discharged at Catamount.
It would be the laser.
So it would just be the laser, not live fire.
So if it be the laser, we're not prepared to allow people to shoot guns at Catamount at this stage.
And we have not asked for that.
Yeah, right. Will not be happening.
So it would be discharging the lasers, but
Yeah.
no actual.
The other one that has been used in schools and at libraries is BB guns, so that's the only other one that's been considered, but there would be no true firearm at Catamount. It would be BBs or lasers.
And bows?
And those, if we get approval for the bow hunter certification course.
Would that be the same day or would that be a separate?
They
Another
offer them as combo courses. So you can do just basic hunter ed, or you can do basic and then on a completely different time frame do bow, or you can do the combo.
Sorry, just to clarify, so if it was the bow hunting course, there would actually be real bows
Yes.
being.
They would not have broadheads, they would have target tips, so the broadheads in Vermont are the ones that have like razor blade sharp edges on the tip of the bow that are used to hit the animal, but when we do these training courses, we use field tips, so they're blunt, they stick into a target, they're not sharp at all. There's a lot of momentum coming from that bow and arrow, so we do set up that safe backdrop and all of that. And then the bows that are used when you're hunting, they have a drawback weight, and usually that drawback weight is like 75 plus pounds, because you want that arrow to have a lot of speed and a lot of momentum when it impacts the target animal. If you have a low weight, it's gonna cause harm, but maybe not kill, which is not the goal of hunting. You wanna have a quick, clean kill. So when we do these education courses, we actually have a very, very low draw weight. It's usually like 15 to 20 pounds, just so they can get through the motion. There is not a lot of velocity behind those arrows in the training programs. So different tips, different draw weights.
Great.
So I've got a question. What do people think about that archery aspect on Catamount? Yeah. Yeah,
Thumbs down.
yeah,
As a neighbor, I think that's not cool.
okay. And what, anyone online wanna comment on that?
We had a couple thumbs up.
I think if it's isolated to, like you're
Right.
saying, a spot, and there's adults in
Right.
the room, I think that would be safe.
Okay. I mean, that's probably the aspect that I am a little worried about at this stage.
They're doing these at schools though too, right?
In gymnasiums.
Yeah,
Sure, but I wanna point out that, like, my kids have monthly lockdown drills. They are very concerned about firearms being discharged. And to have that in their home environment is, you know, it's not something that I would want as a person who owns a home there. For them to be aware of those weapons being discharged. They have concerns and apprehensions, and that's where we live. So it's different if your kid is in school. You can make those, you know, kind of different choices, but to have that happening is not something that I support or am in favor of.
Yeah, I think to clarify too, it's more about the bow, and I think, without being familiar with it, I grew up with them, so it's like, it's the big deal. And knowing, I lived in Wilson for 25 years, I used to hunt with a rifle, and I stopped, and now I only hunt with the bow here. And probably nobody, my neighbors don't even know I hunt with a bow. It's happening, and in fact, the Clark farm down the hill is very active hunting. There could be 20 or 30 people a year that are hunting there, and the neighbors may not know it. Because for the most part, you, as a hunter, you go in and from a tree stand with an archery gear, you can shoot down and make it very safe. And then part of this class, we learn that. It's like, you can't endanger people. Not everybody knows you're in the woods. So when you're shooting or discharging any kind of a firearm or a bow, you need to know, where could that go? What could go wrong? And don't shoot. And I think, the unfamiliarity with bows and weapons is quite scary for most people. And so I can really empathize with this outlook.
Yeah.
And I hate the free part's kind of neat, because I'm not sure how old your children are, but they might participate in, even though you may never, ever want to discharge a firearm or a bow, learning this process. We teach our kids in school about drug use, safe driving, safe sex. We don't teach them or make them go through how do these things work? A lot of these accidents that happen to children, because they're curious and they don't know how to properly handle these types of instruments. And knowing that the right way to handle them and stay away from them, and having control of it. You find one at a house, your friend's house, they go over to a friend's house and they're a hunting family or a shooting family, and they stumble on one. If you're being educated, they're gonna be a lot safer, whether they have any intention of ever using one. So that's another real, I think a good reason to promote the courses, and encourage as many, I think they should make it required in school, especially these days, to be educated on how these things work and how to be safe around them. They're here, they're not, they're not going away.
And I would respond by saying that you're totally right. The statistics completely back up that the majority of firearm accidents are happening in the home.
Yeah.
I totally support hunter education. And like I said, I probably will attend this class if it happens. I don't think it's a bad idea. I just don't want it in my backyard. That's a different question, right?
Yeah, and the discharge of firearms in Williston is not depending on where you are, is a very tricky thing. It's very populated. It's not a safe, and you'll learn that in the course, where you should discharge your weapon and where you shouldn't.
And I'm neighbors with the Clarks, and I am familiar with their hunting policy, and luckily they have been very open, and we've had numerous conversations about it, and I support and respect their right and feel that hunter education is important and necessary and critical. But I also don't necessarily want weapons discharged adjacent to my property. That's a different question. We do not travel on the Clark's property at all during hunting season. We are familiar with their timing, and they're gracious and lovely to share that information with us. That's different than a family center where we hike, we ski, we bike. To have weapons discharged, or excuse me, firearms discharged, that's a different question or bow and arrow, than private property use or something like that, in the schools or in the home. That's a separate question, and as a landowner, I'm not comfortable with that at all. But even though everyone else is, I feel like kind of the oddball out. That's how I feel.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
What would be the duration and the frequency of hunter safety courses?
Most of the ones that are done these days, there's kind of two formats. There's a shorter one and there's a traditional course. A traditional course can be a week long, where you come for 8 hours a day and you do everything on site with that instructor or that team. Then there's kind of the more abridged version, which Simon touched on, how you have at-home homework. So there is an online portion, you get a textbook, and you kind of read through the curriculum before you come to the course, and those ones are usually 1 day. So that one is where you do all of the firearms handling, as well as the woods walk that Simon mentioned. So that would take place over 6 to 8 hours. There are time requirements for the certification, and they're met either through that traditional or abridged format.
But are we talking, once a month for 8 months, duration of a day or half a day or
Oh, as far as the
more
frequency
frequently,
of
less
courses,
frequently, longer or
I'm,
shorter?
we would probably do to start 4 a year, probably 2 in the spring and 2 in the fall.
And at some point, would you have more specific notion of where the safest place might be for bow and arrow training?
As far as on the property itself.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that that's something that, the Catamount staff and the committee are discussing, with this public input. It's kind of determining what that location may be. Again, I'm envisioning the wedding field because I think that's the most separate from the actual trail networks. And I think it's the most secure in creating that backdrop and having an open space where you can see everything around you. So from my experience working with Hunter Ed, which I've taught hunter education for almost 10 years now, I think that would be the safest location on the property.
Where is that?
Adjacent to Jim and Lucy's house in front of the pond on the south side.
So a small mode area there, just off the road.
And the actual live fire component of the course would probably be maybe an hour at most. It wouldn't be, that's not like the bulk of the course isn't doing live fire, it's just a fraction of the course.
On that area, in that area, yeah, okay. And it's surrounded by, it's all wetlands, and so it's not mowed, it's pretty inaccessible to people, so. So I think the nice part about this is there's other options, there are options, there's many options that, the live fire portion could take place at North Country. That people could be driven over there and done that portion. I mean, it's not out of the question, or the gravel, pit quarry. So there are options, but. Okay, so do we have anybody else that would like to speak, or anybody else online? Jay, you have your hand up. Is that a new?
Yeah, I'm looking at the restricted firearms discharge area, and it's dated October 15th, 2011. And it looks like the northeast corner of Williston and anything below 89. And then there's certain areas in the lavender that are restricted. So it seems that there's fairly some openness to this, and it seems like this has been around and made public for years. And I know that there's a fair amount of hunting that goes on right off of Governor Chittenden Road, especially during wild turkey season. And there was a group of hunters that actually found a dead body there about 20 years ago. I don't know if anyone remembers that.
The hockey player, yeah.
Yeah. So all the reason why anyway, never mind. But is this in the process of being changed or looked at? Or I mean, it seems like this is a pretty solid, in supporting of what you're proposing.
We're not proposing to change the restricted firearms discharge area.
No. We're just looking to propose to have the hunter education course, and it would be on Catamount, where I think that is an area where discharge is allowed.
And just to reiterate, we're not shooting guns.
It's not shooting any weapon, any firearms.
Yeah, and lasers are not firearms. Okay.
And I just checked online for Vermont Fish and Wildlife. And yes, I know that you can do online hunting courses, but it's not the same thing. And the next Vermont Hunter in Class Education Traditional course is in March. And granted, I know it's not in the season right now, it's not peak season, but that's all the way in Enosburg. And, why should someone who's interested in Chittenden County have to cross county lines to take an in-person safety course? So. And
good point. That's good.
And I'm in total support of this, particularly in the decline and the new generation. I forget what this generation is called. Z, is that right? and decline in the interest in hunting. And it's affected, it's nationwide, and particularly more so in Vermont. And that's sort of disappointing because, again, it's an age-old tradition. And, you know, I love wild game in terms of the meat. And I'll never turn down, I mean, students, they didn't bribe me for grades, but they would give me, you know, some nice frozen tenderloin, venison tenderloin. And I didn't decline.
I think that we're pretty much, you know, it sounds like the folks here are supportive of an educational program and, you know, that it is a valuable asset to the community and to the members.
Yep.
And Sharon, you have your hand up?
Yeah, just to help Jay understand that Catamount did allow hunting up to the time that Jim and Lucy sold it to the town. And then when the town took it over, hunting wasn't allowed. So that is why the map hasn't been changed, because it was allowed and it was actually hunting ground. I'm just wondering and curious why people that do have property that hunting is encouraged, why don't they host these types of classes? Like, for instance, Jay is right. I mean, there's hunting that goes on that is owned by the farm that's at the base of Governor Chittenden, Governor Chittenden Road. So seems to me that the hunters' land would be like no resistance because they already support hunting. So why wouldn't they support a hunting education course? And so in Chittenden County, all you have to do is go down the road a half a mile and have the course with flying bullets and arrows. I'm just like,
Well, I must say, I think that, you know, the one of the charges of the Catamount Community Forest is an educational component. And so here we have an area, you know, a parcel that's owned by the town and who encourages to education programs. And we have the parking, we have the visibility, it's easy access. So I think, you know, just it makes so much sense to be able to bring folks. And my thought was, you know, it's a great way to introduce people to the property, because there's still a lot of people in town that don't really know about Catamount and what a beautiful place it is. And so I think it would be a great way to get a new group of folks out there.
well, what I'm thinking though is a hybrid. In other words, because it's within walking distance, this property that hunting happens on, is that they'll have access to all of that, and you can do the educational part in Catamount. But when it comes to the practice of firing a gun, I don't see how a laser can produce the same thing as when you discharge a firearm. There's significant pushback into the shoulder that happens in one and not the other, unless laser guns have developed to give you that punch. I'm just saying it is just possibly something to at least explore.
But I guess
So
the nice option is that the North Country Gun Club is just right down the road. So that would be a viable option to, you know, if you're going to go somewhere, it might be a great idea to go to a facility that already is set up for something like that and not a individual homeowner. So.
Yeah, I just think that practicing with a real gun is quite a bit different than with a laser. So in a hunter ed course, I would think it's just prudent to use the real thing. And
I guess Amanda, can you speak to that? I mean, they have plenty of courses where at school, you're not going to fire.
I think,
live,
yeah, I think we talked about this. Amanda mentioned that there's benefits to having everything taking place at Catamount. No doubt is a drawback using the lasers, but it's also good that people don't have to decamp somewhere else. I think what we're interested in here is giving feedback from town manager, so we can understand and make a decision. And I think, you know, there are some parameters we've defined here, which is no firing guns on the property.
Right.
I think people are generally comfortable with the educational aspect. To me, like, if you want to do lasers, or then you want to take it off site, those both have pros and cons, and, you know, I'd probably leave it up to you to make a decision about like what best, you know, goes best there. I think what I've taken from this is that there is a good deal of support for these hunter education courses. I think no one's in favour of guns being discharged on the property this time. Bit of diversity of opinion on the archery range. So I'll feed that back to the town manager, and see what he thinks about that. Public feedback is important, but we also have to consider our own liability from that regard as well.
And I'll just throw out there that it would not be a permanent range setup. These are temporary. They would be built for the course and taken back down.
Yeah. Great.
Well,
Well-
thanks for listening to.
Oh, thank you for sharing. Yeah, your
No, I-
view. Yeah, it's great to have it.
Yeah.
It's great to have the public come and just tell us what's on their mind. It's very, very valuable. Yeah.
It's all good in a civil manner. I appreciate it.
Yes.
And thanks for your work, committee. Thank you very much for what you do for the town. And for
Thank you.
Catamount specifically. Have a good night. I'm signing off.
Thank you very much. Thank
Okay.
you.
So I think we'll wrap
So-
on that. We've,
I think
one
we
more.
can, if everybody's,
you can,
yeah, we can close this out. I don't think we don't need to vote on anything, and we don't have a quorum anymore, so.
and we still have Ethan, so everybody can
Yeah.
stay and listen to Ethan for
Yeah,
an
if
invasive management
Right, we're-
agenda item if you'd like.
You're welcome
That's our
to
last, or you can hang.
head off as well. if
Yeah,
you
right,
like.
you can head out too.
But that's our last agenda
Yeah,
item for the night.
yeah.
So Ethan, we have until 7 when we usually convene, but if you're faster than that, we'll go home and eat dinner faster too.
You said it was like 10 minutes, so.
Yeah.
But I want to thank everyone for coming. I really appreciate the feedback. Thank you. So Ethan, you've got the floor about invasives.
Thanks. So, yeah, basically, we did generate some income that I'm hoping, a lot of that income from the forest management project, and I'm hoping that a lot of that income can be reinvested in invasive plant control, which is a really extreme forest health threat that Catamount faces, and parts of Catamount have pretty pronounced problems. And so, knowing, we have lots of different species, we have areas that have different levels of infestation and individual plants of different maturity levels that will be treated in different ways. And so one thing that I think would be really smart would be to have someone who understands how to control invasive plant infestations like this, to create like a multi-year plan for us that tells us how we're going to budget and how we're going to approach these different issues, what areas are appropriate for volunteers versus what areas we're going to treat and on what timeline. It wouldn't have to be very expensive. Like, we could probably get someone to do something for like a couple $1,000s that would just sort of give us like a blueprint for how we're going to address these plants at scale. So we've been doing it right now, mostly through volunteers, been doing it like, sort of just like tackling it as we can. And, we're just recognizing that we have the opportunity to do a more comprehensive approach. And so I think hiring someone to do a plan would be a really good first step towards tackling this issue.
And do you have ideas of who you would hire?
Yeah, there's one contractor,
Or we
sort
would
of a
hire?
specific thing to ask. There's probably a few contractors who could do it. There's one local contractor who I think would do a really great job, who I've worked with a bunch in the past, who really approaches it how we want to approach it, right? Where it's not about invasive plant eradication. It's about ecosystem restoration. And it's about like positioning this ecosystem so that it's in the best position for the future to be healthy and diverse and provide awesome habitat and be resilient to climate change and all these other things. So that's sort of the lens. He does invasive plant control, but he approaches it through that lens of ecosystem restoration. And he's also done a longer term invasive plant similar project at South Village in South Burlington, which has been, you know, a place with a really severe problem. So he has a lot of experience here in this area doing that kind of stuff. And he also is a contractor often works for the Nature Conservancy. And for Vermont Department of Fish and Wildlife. So I don't know. We can put it out. I can get bids if we need to. And Simon and I have sort of like batted around the idea of if that will be necessary or if there's a potential argument for sole sourcing in this sort of specialized case. But what this contractor Bob said was that he would basically, if we decided how much money to devote to it, he would make us a plan. You know, he could make us a $20,000 plan, but then we would like use up all this money just to make the plan. Or he could make us a $10,000 plan or a $5,000 plan. It'll just be more and more detailed, more and more time as we go forward. And so I would recommend doing like a $3,000 plan or a $2,500 plan or something like that. That'll just give us an outline of how we want to approach things going forward.
And would this be Bob, who's been there working on land already? So he has a history of knowing where the invasives are.
Yes.
And Ethan, one thing I was thinking is that we do have invasive control plans for other country parks. Is Bob able to like signal us? Because when we get those, quite often they just come with a big long list of his various grants you can apply for. Would Bob be able to like give us a more refined version of that? Like, here are like 2 grants that you stand a remote chance of getting if you put the work.
Exactly how you do it. Yeah, totally. Yeah, I want this to be super specific. So I want this to be like, you know, multiple action items that are explicit in time. That's like, this is what we do exactly this time. This is exactly how we approach it. This is what we do at exactly this time, exactly how we approach it over probably either 5 years or 10 years. And to be super specific.
Does the plan tell us if like what level of investment we need to be winning or losing the fight? And you know, your point about it's not about eradication. I don't do invasives for a living. My thought is like, well, why not? For job security for this guy? I mean, like, I'm keeping enough invasives alive, so I've got more work to do.
I think that we will do. The goal will be to remove all the invasives that are at Catamount. But I just think sometimes as we approach this issue, people have it's a subtle shift in like sort of how we think about it, but the public tends to respond a lot more negatively when we talk about like how bad invasives are and what we're removing, and people tend to understand a lot better when we talk about it in terms of what we're creating, like what we're restoring. So it's a subtle shift in how we talk about these things that I think is sort of impactful, but effectively we're going to try to remove them all as much as we can. We do also need to be realistic that they will probably never be completely gone. Just because, you know, there's some level of control, which we define as like, you're going out there, you're monitoring for them all the time, and you're pulling them out when you find them. We're doing like smaller scale control, but our goal is to get it to a point where that's the only control that's necessary.
Okay.
And you can't control your neighbors. So if we could get all the neighbors,
will we know if we're winning or losing? Like if we're investing, you know, X amount a year to control invasives, and it's just getting worse every year, and 10 years from now, it's overrun and we lost the battle. Well, we might as well not even try, or we should like invest at a level that we know we're going to win the battle. So like, will this plan that he does tell us that? Because we're like, oh, we have X amount per year for invasives. Is that even enough to like not lose?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's enough to do a lot of things, and it will help us prioritize where that will be the most impactful. You know, and,
like
that's really what I want to do is with this money and with, you know, also to be realistic about other sources of like internal funding and external funding that may be available or are available to deal with this, just to be realistic about like what can we do with the resources that we have. And then but monitoring also needs to be a component of it. And so I want him also to set us up with a monitoring plan that's like super simple, that is actionable and that volunteers can do, so that we can know how well we're doing. And because it needs to be like sort of adaptive, you know, it's never going to be one approach is going to work for everything. We're going to have to like try different things and adapt as well.
Like one strategy is to target the buckthorn, just taking buckthorn as an example, that has thousands of, you know, seeds, berries on them, and getting rid of those, you know, cutting those down, even though the seeds are gonna drop to the ground and they have a, what do you call that, a seed, you know, that they can live up to 5, 10 years, but at least get those so the birds don't eat them and then fly away and then redistribute them. So there's ways that you can target individual species of invasives.
And what I would say, like what I want the invasive plant to look like is to have areas on a map that are like, these are the areas that volunteers can tackle. And we're going to split it up into a manageable amount for each year, because it's not appropriate to send volunteers into these areas where these problems are really dense. We should send them into these areas like the meadows that have scattered invasives that can be easily located and treated. And then, you know, identifying areas that have more dense invasives. In the northern part of Catamount, for instance, there are widely scattered Japanese barberry plants. In the southern part of Catamount, there are very, very dense, small diameter, 5-foot tall buckthorn plants. And then in the southeastern part of Catamount, there are very large diameter buckthorn plants. Each of those things, like, we're going to approach in a slightly different way. And so I just really want some help with expertise in being like, okay, these are areas we're going to send volunteers. These are areas we're going to send a professional to do this type of work on this year. And we're doing this first. And then we're going to send a different professional on this year to go tackle this other thing, and just sort of have this like step-by-step approach for what makes the most sense.
Right, but you don't want to send folks out to an area that, you know, you can have the brontosaurus go out there, because volunteers, you just couldn't ever
Make a dent.
And it would just, it'd be overwhelming for.
We never see him again.
No.
Okay, so the goal of the agenda item is to see if we have committee consensus on moving forward with next step to ask for an invasive plan to be created.
Yeah, so we have the stewardship fund that does require spending money from that does require select board approval. So next step would be for Ethan and I to come up with a proposal, and I'll do a short memo for it that the committee can vote on, make any changes they want to it, and then we'll forward that over to select board to see if they're willing to release the funds.
Okay.
But I think it was just to get an idea that this is something that it's worth Ethan and I spending a bit of time writing up.
Yeah, I mean, I support it. I mean, Terry and Reed.
So my thoughts are that, we've been doing, a valuable service trying to eradicate these, but it seems to be bigger than maybe we thought it was. And so a plan will really help attack it. Oh, especially if you're talking about 5 to 10 years, and is it a measurable plan, which is what Hans, I think you're saying, how do we know whether we're getting somewhere? So I think I support the idea of getting a well-structured plan that would help us, attack the problem.
And I've been out there a lot working with different volunteer groups and things, and I can tell it's making a difference, but I'd really like to know, where are the places we really should be focusing on, and have it in a plan. So it would be really easy to plan volunteer days and, where to focus. So.
Okay. All right, so we'll consider the committee supportive of it, and then you can go forward to select board with a proposal.
We'll bring it back to you in February.
Okay.
Just so that you can Right, so you can actually see what we're telling the select board.
Okay, okay,
Yeah,
Yeah, we do need an actual
okay.
vote from you on that.
But now
Yeah.
we're just giving
Yeah.
you the
Yeah.
confidence that you're not wasting your time. And-
I don't like presenting these things fully formed, because it gives the impression that,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay.
Okay, great.
Great, good.
good.
All right, well then, I think that's our last agenda item. Do we motion to adjourn, I think? A motion to,
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I second that.
all in favor? Aye,
I
with us? So we're adjourned at 6:56.
6.
Great, ahead of schedule.
Thank you. Good.
All
Thank
right.
you, everybody. Good night.
Thanks.
Thank you all for coming.
Yeah, thank you. I'm sorry, what's your name again? Terry, I'm. Yeah.